Hey everybody, it's Aubrey from the Daily Draft, and today I have a really special guest. This is Allison Sproul. She is the head of recruitment and HR at CozyKin. We're in the CozyKin office right now, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Great to have you.
I'm so happy to have you on. So tell us a little bit about your background and talent.
Yeah, sure. So I actually started my career as an English teacher in China.
Oh my gosh.
HR was not really supposed to end up on my roadmap, if you will. I originally thought I wanted to be an interpreter, and so I had moved to China to further my Mandarin, which I still speak, but don't really use now.
That's really impressive.
And at the end of my first year, my friend and colleague Nate said to me that he was applying for a recruiting opening at the company that we were working for. And I've always been inherently pretty competitive. And so I thought, I think I do a really good job at that. And so I applied and I got the role and did very well with it. So I worked with EF as a recruiter for about 5 years and relocated first from Beijing to Shanghai with them, and then from Shanghai to their North American headquarters in Cambridge. And so that's actually how I first moved to Boston. Grew a lot within the company, and then towards the end of my time there, I knew that my very high volume of teacher recruiting, while very fulfilling to help people achieve their dreams overseas, really wasn't going to continue to help me on my own goal to become a chief people officer one day. So I knew that I needed to diversify my recruitment portfolio. So I actually went into agency recruiting for about a year with complete staffing.
Wow.
Yep. And then, so it's kind of like an untraditional path. I went from corporate to agency and then back to corporate. People are always like, wait, what? And so, then after doing the agency thing, I was like, no, I really miss corporate. So I went back to corporate a couple of years ago with Cengage, where I built out a national internship program for them. And then after a year there, I was like, okay, I've done the whole big company thing twice now and been pretty successful. Wonder what startup land's like. So I met a friend, Steph Rulick, who's the founder of Boston Startup Week, and she encouraged me to kind of get into the scene a little bit more. And I landed at CozyKin about a year ago now as first their head of their head of care recruitment, which was managing the high volume recruitment of all of our nannies. And then 2 months later, got promoted into interim head of people, and then locked that in a few months ago, actually a quarter ago now. So,
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And CozyKin, you recently moved offices, which is a huge struggle.
Yeah.
Every startup has to go through it at some point. And did this move impact recruiting, or did recruiting impact the move?
Definitely the latter. So we've only been in the space now for about a week. So I'm sure now that we do have our own dedicated space that it will probably help with the recruiting piece. Not so much on the nanny side, since obviously they're out in the homes with the kids. But probably on our corporate hiring side, it's definitely nice to have our own dedicated space as opposed to being in a co-working space, which was really lovely. Shout out to Work Bar. Love them, but it's really nice to have our own space because we grew by almost 93% in Q2 of this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So definitely a lot of hypergrowth very quickly there. We're very happy to now have our own dedicated phone booths where we're not fighting over
It's nice to be able to spread your wings, spread out a little bit.
Exactly. Well, and also just to have the CozyKin brand be around us. We can have rubber ducks and stuff, which is
really cool.
It's fun because we didn't really get to personalize the space too much when we were at work.
Yeah, and with your background, you've worn many different hats in recruiting.
Yeah.
Which hat has been the most challenging?
Yeah, so I was born an extrovert. I don't think that recruiting itself is challenging, but if we expand that question a bit more to the entirety of human resources, I might say getting people in the door isn't quite as hard if you align yourself with very mission-driven companies, which I've been very fortunate to do with EF, Cengage, now CozyKin. I don't think I've ever heard someone say, I don't care about education. So that'd be a little weird. So recruiting itself has always come pretty naturally, but I think that ultimately the retention piece is significantly harder. So I would say that's definitely the biggest challenge, just because there is such low unemployment right now. I think last I looked it was 3.6 nationwide. 3.6% that is. And so whether it's our hourly workforce or our workforce that's here in the office,
Yep.
there's just so many competing offers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not even just about the compensation piece. Can you define that career path for them? Can you make sure that their manager's super supportive of them? And there's just so many different nuances
totally.
to keep people there. I'd say that's definitely the largest challenge that I had to experience.
It's not the getting people in the door part, it's the getting them to stick around part.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and give yourself some career advice, what would it have been?
Yeah, so, and it's funny, I said to Vinayak last time I had spoken to him about a year ago prior to coming CozyKin, and I was saying, if I could go back and give myself some advice, it would be don't rely on others for your professional development.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because although I've been very fortunate to have some super supportive bosses to develop me within the recruiting and talent field, I haven't necessarily had that on the HR side. And so I don't think I would have been able to step into my current role had I not pushed myself to go and get my SHRM SCP this past year that I funded myself. And so I think that helped to unlock the door for my current position as head of recruitment and HR here at CozyKin.
Mm-hmm.
But also to, even if you have the best manager, there are only so many hours in a day where they can dedicate that time to developing you as their direct report.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're putting all of your cookies into that basket, then what are you giving back to yourself?
Yeah.
Right? So ultimately, I think that we need to take a hard look at what we're doing to get to where we want to be and figuring out, okay, if my end game goal is to be chief people officer, what steps am I taking to get there? I knew at EF when I was doing high volume teacher recruiting, I was great at it, but that probably wasn't going to get me to be a chief people officer. So I needed to diversify that recruiting. And so I made that switch to agency, and then I made the switch back. And so with each move, it was very much contemplated beforehand. So that way I knew, how is this fitting into my ultimate goal, and what will I be doing in that position that will ultimately further my own professional development, regardless of, the management structure there.
Right. That's really great advice. And we're just coming off of Boston Startup Week, which is awesome.
Yes.
So fun. And you were head of the track for People Ops this year.
Yep.
Getting all those events together. Thanks for asking me to moderate. So why do you think events like this and Boston startups having access to them are really important?
Yeah, so, the reason why I think it's really important to be involved with Boston Startup Week and for people to actually go and attend those sorts of things is because, kind of similar to what I said in the last question, professional development is so key. And you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to go through a General Assembly course, although General Assembly is great, so is Flatiron School. My brother works for them.
Shout out.
Yes. But ultimately, Boston Startup Week provided over 65 free events for people to further their development. And so, yes, it was a lot of work on our end, but it's such a great way to give back to the community. And even me sitting there as an organizer, I was still able to take so much away from all the different panelists, whether it was about compensation or recruiting or scaling a culture. There was just so many different topics that it got to touch. And it was just really, really fulfilling to see all the startups kind of come together, especially with the culmination in the mentor exchange. That's always a really fulfilling event for startup leaders to help mentor more of that junior talent and just kind of give back. So yeah, it's very fulfilling, but also great to see that development in others.
Thank you so much for having me in the CozyKin office, Allison.
You're welcome anytime.
And thanks for being a really big track advocate. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Bye.
See you.